I never, ever thought I'd end up working with my ex-wife. After all, it had only been 3 months since we ended a miserable 3-year marriage that felt more like mutual torture. The day the news broke that a new female general manager was starting, the entire office was buzzing. It's about time we got a young, attractive manager. Man, she's gorgeous in her photo. Hey, Kevin from the next desk over leaned in, looking at the introduction photo of Victoria Reed on the company intranet. This new GM, she's not even 30. You think she's married? She was. And then she wasn't. Huh? I closed the page. She has a boyfriend, though, I said flatly. Probably getting married soon. Maybe she already is. Kevin stared at me, his jaw slack. How do you know all that? I just shook my head and smiled. Just a guess. She has that look. Except it wasn't a guess. Everything I said was true. Because I'm Victoria Reed's ex-husband. Victoria and I were the textbook example of a storybook romance that turns into a nightmare. We met at the State University. She was a year ahead of me, my senior. Some people are just the center of attention wherever they go. You can't help but look at them. That was Victoria. I guess you could say I had a crush on her first. But so many guys were into Victoria that I didn't have the confidence. I just put her on a pedestal in my mind, my own private goddess, and never dared to say a word. Of course, I was also terrified of being rejected, and even more terrified that if she turned me down, we couldn't even be friends. Then, one summer, we both volunteered for a teaching program in a remote mountain area. The housing conditions were pretty rough. One night, my roof started leaking, and the program director moved me to an empty classroom to wait for it to be repaired. When I got there, I realized someone was already inside. It was Victoria. The director must have sent her there to wait out the rain, too. For whatever reason, whether she was exhausted or something else, she was fast asleep, slumped over one of the tiny student desks. I quietly pulled out the chair next to her and just watched her sleep, my heart pounding in my chest. The classroom lights were off, and rain was lashing against the windows. I felt a surge of boldness, and an idea popped into my head. Slowly, I leaned in closer to her face. The second the tips of our noses were about to touch, a huge clap of thunder cracked outside. It jolted me back to reality, like the thunder had knocked some sense into me. I scoffed at myself for losing my head and was about to sit back up when a slender but strong hand pressed firmly against the back of my head. Victoria slowly opened her eyes and looked at my panicked face. "Leo," she began, her voice low. "What were you just about to do?" "Nothing. I wasn't going to do anything." Caught red-handed. My face flushed bright red. I struggled to get her to let go of me, but she held on, a smile playing on her lips. Then, just like that, she kissed me. I was so stunned I forgot to even struggle. It was a very, very light kiss. "But I wanted to," she said. And just like that, Victoria and I were together. She was a great girlfriend. We were together for 3 years in college and planned to stay in the city after graduation. But then, out of the blue, she got an incredible offer from a well-known company back in her hometown. She had never really wanted to be a teacher, and this was her dream job. After thinking it over, she took my hand and asked if I would go back home with her. Victoria's hometown was a world away from mine. There was no direct train. It was a 20-hour ride to get there. My parents were dead set against me going with her. My dad and I got into several huge fights over it. But I was so in love with Victoria back then that I didn't listen to a word they said. I told my mom that Victoria would never let me down. In the end, she was the one who hurt me the most. It was like I was completely blinded. Even after my dad said, "If you insist on moving there to marry her, then don't ever come back to this house," I didn't hesitate. As soon as I graduated, I followed Victoria to her hometown. She was there to pick me up when the train pulled in. It was a snowy night. I was wearing a thick down jacket. I ran to her and held her tight, my eyes red as I told her I was here. Her eyes were red, too, and she cupped my face, kissing me all over. "Victoria," I said that night, holding her in my arms, "my parents are furious. Dad said if I left, he'd disown me. You're all I have now." She held me tighter. She said, "Leo, let's get married. I'll be good to you for the rest of our lives." So Victoria and I got married. After we were married, I got a job as an elementary school English teacher, and Victoria started at the company. Things were sweet and happy at first. We were like any other newlywed couple, cooking together, watching movies, doing chores. My dad was still angry with me. He didn't even come to the wedding. It hurt, but I was so wrapped up in the bliss of our new life that I let a lot of things slide. I kept telling myself that once we got a long vacation, I'd take Victoria back home to see him. We'd sit down, she'd promise him she'd take care of me, and he'd eventually come around. But Victoria got busier and busier. It wasn't just working late on weeknights, she started working weekends and holidays too. I felt bad for her and told her not to push herself so hard, but she'd just hug me and say she had to. "I have to show your parents that you made the right choice," she'd say. "I'm going to give you a life that everyone will envy." Victoria's career took off. In just 2 years, she was promoted to department manager. Over those 2 years, she went out for countless work dinners and drinks. Every time she came home drunk and sick, I was the one there, heartbroken, cleaning up after her. At the dinner celebrating her promotion, I met Henry for the first time. He was wearing a tailored designer suit and gold-rimmed glasses. He walked up to Victoria, looking every bit the gentleman, tilted his head, and congratulated her. Maybe it was just a guy's intuition, but I felt uneasy right away. When we got home that night, I asked Victoria who he was. She was a little drunk. She gave me a kiss on the cheek and said, "Oh, Henry? He's just a colleague from my department." Before I could ask more, she was already asleep. But Henry wasn't just a colleague. He quickly started invading our life. Late-night texts, random phone calls, the scent of a strange men's cologne on her clothes. These things quickly became the reason Victoria and I started fighting. I couldn't stand Henry's blatant provocations, and Victoria's overtime hours just kept increasing. Then one night I waited until 11, and she still wasn't home. I took a cab to her office building and saw them standing on the steps. Henry had his arm around her waist, brushing a piece of lint off her shoulder. "You should get going," he said with a slight smirk. "Or else your guy at home is going to start blowing up your phone again." Victoria gave a tired, bitter smile. "I'll go back after he's asleep." That night I lost it. I rushed forward, pushed Victoria aside, and punched Henry in the face. What did Victoria say that night? "Right," she said. "Leo, you're acting like a lunatic." After that night, our relationship turned ice cold. We didn't speak a word to each other. Half a month later, Victoria slid a set of divorce papers across the table to me. I had never seen her look so cold. She told me she had real feelings for Henry. She knew cheating was wrong, but when love happens, you can't control it. I just stared at her. "Love?" I repeated her word numbly, feeling my entire world crumble. "You and him are in love? Then what about us?" She was silent for a long time before finally saying one thing. "Let's just get a divorce." I refused. I couldn't accept it. A few days later, Henry showed up at my school, saying he wanted to talk. Only a pathetic man uses marriage to chain down a woman. He looked at me with pure contempt. "Is there any point in doing this?" He pulled up a security video on his phone. "Mr. Davis, what do you think your students would say if they saw this video of you acting like a maniac and hitting someone? What would the school think? Just sign the papers. Victoria is my woman. We've already done everything. Her heart is with me now, so why make things miserable for yourself? Why won't you divorce her? Because she has money and a career?" He gave me a mocking look. "A man needs to know his place. You're just a regular elementary school teacher. I'm the one who's a match for her. I see there are plenty of female teachers at your school. Why don't you find a divorced one and live a quiet life? Wouldn't that be nice? You can't keep up with Victoria's world anymore." He said a lot that day, threatening me with the video of me hitting him. I didn't say a word the entire time. Finally, he got frustrated and asked what it would take. I said only one thing. "If you're so capable, then you make her divorce me." After that, Victoria stopped coming home, so I called her phone over and over. She blocked my number, so I went to her office to wait for her. I acted like a madman. There was only one thought in my head. If they weren't going to let me be happy, then nobody was going to be happy. I typed up the whole story, printed it out on flyers, and posted them all over her company's building, handing them to everyone who walked in or out. He wanted to expose me? Fine, I'd expose him first. He thought I was afraid of losing everything. But the truth was, I had nothing left to lose. From the moment I cut ties with my family for Victoria, she was all I had. And now she didn't want me anymore. Henry had underestimated how crazy I could be to save my marriage. He called me a lunatic. The story of him and Victoria spread through the company like wildfire. To protect its image, the company fired him. The news also reached Victoria's parents. They were very traditional people and were furious when they found out. They called both of us over. In front of me, Victoria's father was so angry he slapped her across the face. Her mother cried, saying that if Victoria dared to get a divorce, she wouldn't be able to go on living. In the end, Victoria gave in. She broke up with Henry and came back home. In this three-person war, I had finally won. That night, Victoria and I talked all night long. We reminisced about the past. I showed her our old photos, page by page. By the end, my voice was choked with emotion, and Victoria was crying, too. With red eyes, she apologized, pulled me into her arms, and said, "Leo, I'm so sorry. Let's start over." Tears streamed down my face. I also reflected on all the impulsive things I had done. We held each other as we slept that night. She was trying hard, and I was too. For the next 2 months, things were calm. She stopped working late so often. We cooked together, watched movies, talked about our days, and visited her parents. We even made plans for her to take time off next month so we could go visit my parents together. It felt like everything was back to the way it used to be. Until one night, she went to take a shower, and her phone, left on the table, kept lighting up. Couldn't resist. I picked it up and answered. The contact name was just L. The moment I answered, the other person hung up. Curious, I looked at the screen and saw a string of texts come through. "Victoria, can you come over tomorrow? I miss you so much. I held the jacket you left here all night. I miss you, I really, really miss you. I don't want to sleep alone. This is so hard. Why can't we be together when we love each other? I've been thinking for so long. It's okay if you can't give me a title, but please don't leave me. I love you so much. I can't live without you. The job you found for me, I'll go, I promise. I know you can't divorce him because of your parents. We'll take it slow. We'll get through this together. Okay?" Every sentence was filled with genuine emotion. Every word was true love. When Victoria came out of the bathroom, I was still standing there, frozen, holding the phone. She snatched it from my hand, glanced at the screen, and said, "Leo, you're still in touch with him?" I stood up, staring at her in disbelief. "Not just in touch, you found him a job? You slept with him? Calm down." How could I possibly calm down? Rage exploded through me, and I screamed hysterically, "How could you do this to me? Victoria, how could you? You said we were going to start over." Victoria just let me scream, her expression growing colder and more distant. "Leo, I told you I wouldn't divorce you. Henry is having a hard time accepting this. I'll handle it slowly. These past few months haven't been any easier for me than they have been for you." Then she said, "Can you just stop pushing me?" That night, I had something I wanted to tell her. My chronic heart condition, which I'd been carefully managing, had finally improved. The doctor said that as long as I kept my stress levels down, I might even be healthy enough to apply for a position I'd always dreamed of, an overseas project manager role with our school district. Henry's texts shattered that joy and sent our relationship plunging back into the deep freeze. A week later, a kid at school fell down the stairs and hit his head. It was bleeding badly. I happened to be passing by and, without a second thought, scooped him up and ran to the school nurse's office. That afternoon, a sharp, needle-like pain started in my chest. Cold sweat soaked through my shirt. I tried calling Victoria, but she never answered. The pain was so intense I was close to passing out. My colleagues frantically got me to the hospital. I ended up collapsing in the office from a sudden cardiac arrhythmia. The doctor said the episode was triggered by extreme stress and exhaustion, causing severe complications. They saved my life, but the damage to my heart was irreversible. I could never do high-intensity work again. The overseas project was now completely out of the question. Lying in that cold hospital bed, I tried calling Victoria again. The phone rang and rang, but she never picked up. Since it was a flare-up of a chronic condition, the doctor just gave me some medication and sent me home. On the way, I sat in the back of a cab, feeling physically sick and suffocated. To distract myself, I opened my phone and started scrolling through short-form videos. Lately, it seemed like those viral videos about people being total doormats in relationships were everywhere. People made one funny skit after another, and the comments were all about how pathetic it was to be so desperate for love. The driver, a friendly older woman, laughed and kept chatting with me through the rearview mirror. That kind of blind love really is terrifying. Hey, young man, what's wrong? I furiously wiped away the tears I couldn't stop with the back of my hand and forced a smile. Nothing. You're just so funny. I'm laughing so hard. I'm crying from laughing. Haha, well, there are tissues on the back of the seat. Help yourself. I pulled out a tissue and turned my head, catching my reflection in the car window. Messy, average hair, a haggard face, a venomous expression, red-rimmed eyes, and a face streaked with tears. Was that really me? Was that the same Leo who had won first place in the state dance competition, shining on stage? Was that the same Leo who was always positive, always looking on the bright side? Was that the same Leo who had won the top award for teaching skills and been called a rising star? It was like something suddenly clicked. I finally understood why I hadn't wanted the divorce. What I couldn't let go of, what I was clinging to, wasn't Victoria anymore. It was everything I had given up for her. Thank God. It was only 6 years. Thank God. Only 6 years. When I got back to our neighborhood, I saw them from a distance, hugging under a tree. Henry's eyes were red, and Victoria was stroking his face tenderly. They kissed, lost in their own world, as if no one else existed. They didn't even notice me as I walked closer. Henry was crying as he kissed her. She'll be home from work soon. I have to go, right? Victoria paused, didn't say anything, and just kissed him again, fiercely. I watched them silently. My body ached, but my mind was surprisingly calm. There was none of the rage that had made me throw a punch that night. I even had the ridiculous thought that I was like the villain in a romance novel, the evil third wheel standing between the hero and heroine. Their love was so tragic, and it was all because of me. 6 years ago, after I failed at my attempt to steal a kiss, Victoria would hold my head down with a twinkle in her eye and whisper, "But I wanted to." 6 years later, all her sympathy was for the other man in front of her, the one making sacrifices for her. She couldn't spare a single ounce of concern for me, even when I was having a medical emergency. All this time, what was I so desperately holding on to? It was that first, unexpected kiss on a rainy night, the sweetness of a mutual crush, the way I gave up everything to run to her in a snowstorm, the way she told me, "Leo, I'll be good to you for the rest of our lives." And now, all of those beautiful memories had been splattered with ugly red paint. It would never wash off. I looked up at the sky. No tears. Suddenly, breathing had never felt so easy. I finally understood. Letting go, falling out of love. It really does happen in an instant. That night, I told Victoria I wanted a divorce. She froze, a look of annoyance on her face. "Can you stop with the drama? First you're threatening to die if we get a divorce, and now what is this?" She probably thought I was just trying to pick another fight. I looked at her and said calmly, "You don't want to?" She didn't answer. Fighting through the pain in my chest, I continued, "Can you really stand to let him be the other man, hidden in the shadows forever?" That seemed to hit a nerve. "Fine, fine. Let's do it. If you're willing, I couldn't be happier." "But Leo," she said, looking at me, her voice devoid of any warmth, "don't you regret this?" How could I regret it? I already had more than enough regrets to last a lifetime. The strange thing was, I had always assumed Victoria wanted out of this marriage even more than I did. But a few days later, when I handed her the divorce papers to sign, she hesitated. "Are you really sure about this?" She dropped the pen, looking frustrated. I nodded. Our assets were simple. The house and car were hers before the marriage. We had some savings, but not much. I only wanted half. There was no reason for her not to sign, but it took her a full 3 days to finally do it. A month later, after all the paperwork was sorted out, we went to the courthouse to finalize the divorce. Leo, now that the moment was finally here, all her previous hostility was gone. She just kept confirming with me, "Are you really sure? Once this is done, we're not married anymore." "Are you really sure?" she asked again. I suddenly found her behavior amusing. She probably thought I was playing some kind of reverse psychology game, using the divorce as a new tactic to sabotage her relationship with Henry. That's why she was so anxious about me suddenly agreeing to it. But I really didn't love her anymore. I really wanted to leave. I didn't want to stay a second longer. The day after the divorce was final, I left. It was snowing heavily that day. Victoria called, surprisingly, and offered to drive me to the station. "Don't worry about it. I only have one suitcase, the same one I brought 3 years ago. I can handle it." But she came anyway. At the train station, I waited to board, and she just stood there silently beside me. Her phone rang several times, but she didn't answer. Eventually, she just turned it off. I figured that since she was the one who cheated, and now that I was letting her go without a fight, she and Henry could be together without any obstacles. She must have felt at least a little guilty. Seeing me off was probably just her way of easing her conscience. When it was time to board, I pushed my suitcase forward. She suddenly grabbed my arm. I turned back. "Let me know when you get home," she said softly. I shook my head and pulled my arm away. "Victoria, we're divorced. From now on, let's just pretend we never knew each other." With that, I walked away without looking back. Standing on the platform amidst the swirling snow, it felt like everything had been reset. 3 years ago, I came here alone with a single suitcase, full of love and blind courage. 3 years later, at the same station, I left here alone, leaving behind all the pain and bitterness. This time, I was never coming back. It was 7 a.m. when I got to my parents' town. Standing at the front door of my childhood home, I hesitated. I hadn't listened to my parents. I'd been selfish and reckless, and this was the result. I had no one to blame but myself. What right did I have to come back now, crying for their help and protection? Just then, the door swung open. My mom, wearing a thick robe, was probably heading out to take out the trash. She saw me and froze. "Leo?" "Mom." My voice trembled. "Oh, honey, why didn't you tell us you were coming?" My mom said, quickly pulling me inside while shouting back into the house. "Honey, come out here. Leo's back." "Why are you back all of a sudden? You're barely wearing anything. Look how cold your hands are. How long were you standing out there? Why didn't you knock?" My mom took the suitcase from my hand. "Where's Victoria? Why isn't she with you?" Just then, my dad walked out of the bedroom. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears streamed down my face. "Dad, Mom, I'm divorced." I thought my parents would tear into me when they found out, but neither of them said a word of blame. After hearing the whole story, my mom's eyes turned red. She trembled with anger, cursing Victoria out, then turned to comfort me. "It's good you're home, sweetheart. It's good you got divorced. That awful woman doesn't deserve our Leo. You listen to Mom, we're going to be happy from now on. The best is yet to come." I fell into my mom's arms and sobbed. All the pain and hurt I'd held inside for 3 years, with no one to talk to, came pouring out like a tidal wave. My dad just sat there, silent. Maybe he had seen this coming all along, which was why he had tried so hard to stop me. That night, I slept in my old bedroom. Nothing had changed. My old awards and photos were still on the wall. My mom said she and my dad cleaned it every day. "Your dad is all bark and no bite," she said, sitting on the edge of my bed. "He said he'd disown you, but he's the one who's always dusting off your trophies." She paused. "You're just like him, you know? Stubborn, you stick to your guns. That's why he was so scared you'd get hurt." I nodded, my eyes stinging again. "Get some sleep," my mom said, patting my forehead. I closed my eyes. My mom turned off the light and left the room. "Whoa, you scared me," I heard her say outside the door. "What are you doing standing here? Is he asleep?" my dad's voice asked. "Not yet, but soon. He cried all day. You should put something on his eyes." My dad's voice drifted through the door. "After he falls asleep, roll a warm egg over them or they'll be sore tomorrow." I turned over in bed, and fresh tears rolled down my cheeks. That night, I had the best sleep I'd had in a very long time. The next day, I got a clean buzz cut. I used to meticulously style my hair the way she liked it. Now, I just wanted to do something for myself to start fresh. I'm certified as an elementary school English teacher, but after checking with a few local schools, none had any openings or hiring plans. Luckily, my neighbor's sister was moving abroad, and the company she worked for was in urgent need of an English language administrator. She recommended me for the job. So I started working at this new company. It was a private company that did foreign trade, with branches all over the country. I was at one of the local branches. The atmosphere was great, my colleagues were friendly, and the company organized regular employee activities. They also sponsored a nearby elementary school in a rural area, which were all things I was interested in and good at. For 3 months, I was genuinely happy at this company. Then, the old general manager was hospitalized with a sudden illness. He retired due to his health after being discharged, and the company hired a new GM. I never thought I would see Victoria again so soon, and I definitely never thought she would be the new general manager of my company. If you were to ask me what's it like to run into your toxic ex, who is now your boss, I'd be the perfect person to answer. But the dramatic scenes where you quit on the spot or get your epic revenge only happen in novels. My parents are retired now. I couldn't just quit my job and expect them to support me. Besides teaching, I had no other work experience, and finding another job would be a huge uncertainty. For now, at least I needed this job. Honestly, aside from the initial shock, I didn't feel much about Victoria working here. My position almost never interacts with the general manager. In a company this big, we probably wouldn't even run into each other. So I just kept going to work like normal. My mom, worried I was still wallowing in the pain of my divorce, had been actively setting me up on blind dates for months. To put her mind at ease, I went to all of them. She was casting a wide net, though, so I sometimes met some real characters. But looking at it another way, it did add a little entertainment to my life. One day at lunch, I was chatting with my colleague Mark in the cafeteria, and he asked me how the dating scene was going. I sighed and laughed. I met one yesterday. She found out I used to be an English teacher. You know what she asked me? What? She said she's thinking about getting a master's degree and asked if I could tutor her in English for free. Mark couldn't hold it in and sprayed his drink everywhere. Just then, a group of people walked past our table, and one of them paused for a second. "What is wrong with people?" Mark said after he stopped laughing. "But seriously, if even a great guy like you gets divorced, I really don't get what your ex was thinking. What do women even want in a husband these days?" I just smiled and sipped my soup. Different strokes for different folks, I guess. "I get it," Mark said, clicking his tongue. "You get tired of plain white rice and want to try something different." He suddenly went silent. I looked at him, confused, and saw he had already shot up from his seat, looking nervous. "Ms. Reed." I followed his gaze. Our eyes met. Her expression was a mixture of surprise and something more complicated. She probably hadn't expected to see me here, either. Mark was tugging at my sleeve. With so many people watching, I stood up, too. "Hello, Ms. Reed." She seemed taken aback for a moment. The people with her all started greeting her as well. The area immediately got noisy as people tried to get the boss's attention. I gave Mark a little pull, and we picked up our trays and slipped away. After that, I didn't see Victoria again at work. A few days later was the company's semi-annual meeting. Besides the usual summaries and awards, each department had to prepare a performance. The department had already decided that I would perform a duet with a female colleague who also had a dance background. We were short on time, and it had been a while since I'd danced. My partner was more experienced than me, so we decided early on to adapt one of my old college competition routines into a duet. My mom, who still didn't know Victoria was my boss, got all excited when she heard I was performing and dug out my old competition costume. It was a flowing, white performance outfit. I tried it on. still fit. My son is so handsome, like a prince on stage, my mom said proudly. On the day of the performance, standing on stage, I was actually really happy. After graduating from college and marrying Victoria, my life had become a boring routine of work, home, and chores. I had barely danced at all, and it had been a long time since I'd been in the spotlight. The dance was exhilarating. My partner and I were perfectly in sync, and I had a great time. After we got off stage, we were walking and talking, still high off the energy of the performance. Then someone called out, "Ms. Reed." I turned my head. Victoria was standing at the backstage entrance, looking in my direction. For some reason, standing there all by herself, she looked strangely lonely. The expression in her eyes was too dark for me to read. Not that I was interested. I turned and walked out through another exit. After the semi-annual meeting, I became a minor celebrity at the company. A few friendly women from other departments even came over to ask if I had a girlfriend. I told them honestly that I was divorced. They were surprised, but then they clenched their fists and promised to help me find a nice girl. I just smiled and thanked them. At the same time, I got some good news. The city was opening a new experimental elementary school in the development district, and they had just posted the teacher recruitment notice. A week later, the company organized another charity visit to the rural elementary school they sponsored. I had gone on one when I first started, and since my colleagues knew I had teaching experience, they recommended me again. I just didn't expect Victoria to come along, too. The kids at the school still remembered me, all crowding around and calling, "Mr. Davis! Mr. Davis!" I was thrilled. I handed out snacks, taught an English class, and played duck, goose with them. I was the mother hen, and a male colleague was the fox. I was sweating buckets by the end. Exhausted and about to grab some water, I saw Victoria, who had been talking with the principal, suddenly walk over. "You must be tired. I can take over for a bit," she said to my male colleague. He was stunned and just nodded dumbly. Our eyes met. I turned away and said to the little girl behind me, "Do you want to be the mother hen?" The little girl's eyes lit up as she shouted, "Yes, Mr. Davis is going to get some water. I'm leaving these little chicks with you now. You have to protect them, okay?" I smiled, waved to the kids, and went into the classroom. No one was there. I sat down, a dull ache starting in my chest. After my heart attack, I had rushed through all the divorce proceedings with Victoria without getting proper rest. It had left me with lingering palpitations and chest tightness. The recent dance practice had been tiring. I'd stayed up late the night before preparing for my interview at the new school, and I'd just been running around. The pain was worse than usual this time. I didn't have my medication with me. I knew I wouldn't last until the afternoon, so I texted my colleague, the fox, and told him I wasn't feeling well and asked if he could drive me back early. He was a good guy and came right away to take me to the hospital in the city. Turns out, when it rains, it pours. The doctor also diagnosed me with acute gastroenteritis and said I needed an IV. I had no choice but to call my mom and ask her to bring my medical records from the past few months to the hospital. My parents arrived quickly, rushing around to pay bills and pick up medicine. I lay on the bed, my eyes closed, getting the IV drip. The infusion room was noisy. I'm not sure how much time passed, but when I opened my eyes, I saw someone standing by my bed. It was Victoria. "You?" Kevin told me that you were in this hospital. I was worried, so I came. Kevin was the colleague who had driven me here. "There's really no need for that," I said coolly. "Ms. Reed." Victoria was holding a sheet from my medical chart, her face pale. She looked more like the patient than I did. "Just now, while you were asleep, someone knocked your chart onto the floor. It scattered everywhere. I picked it up." She stepped closer, her eyes red, her hand gripping the paper so tightly it trembled. Her voice shook. Did we cause you to have a heart attack?" That chart was from last month when I came to get a refill on my medication. My past medical history was listed on it. "October 26th, she said, her voice strained. "The day you asked for a divorce, was it because your condition flared up that day?" Her hands were shaking. I reached out and took the chart from her. The old me might have been full of resentment, crying and telling her all about the pain of that day. But now I had nothing left to say. No. My heart felt as calm as a lake without a single ripple. It was because I didn't love you anymore. Victoria. I looked her straight in the eye and repeated, "It's because I don't love you anymore." Just then, my parents walked in. They both froze when they saw Victoria. Victoria froze too. She opened her mouth and actually managed to say, "Mom, Dad." My mom was stunned for a second. Then her emotions erupted. "You heartless woman. What right do you have to call us Mom and Dad?" Tears instantly streamed down my mom's face. "We handed our perfectly healthy son over to you, and what did you do to him? Huh? You still have the nerve to show your face here?" She rushed forward to hit Victoria. "Get out. Get out right now." My dad grabbed her arm. My mom turned, furious. "What are you stopping me for?" My dad shook his head at her. "There are other patients here. You go stay with Leo." Then, he looked at Victoria and said in a low voice, "You, come with me." My dad and Victoria weren't gone for long before I heard someone outside yell, "Hey, there's a problem out here. There's a problem." I panicked and quickly told my mom to go check. She was gone for a while. It was the family member from the next bed who came back in first. "Oh my God, you have no idea. There was a huge fight out in the hall." My heart leaped into my throat as the person continued, "That older guy must be almost 60, right? He just walked up and slapped that young woman right across the face. It was so loud, they almost called security, but the woman said it was fine." In their vivid description, I learned what my dad had said. As he hit her, he yelled, "You have no right to call us Mom and Dad." I raised my son from the day he was born. I treasured him more than anything. I never let him suffer even the slightest bit. Did you think I raised such a wonderful son for you to trample all over? From now on, I'll hit you every single time I see you. Just then, my mom came back helping my dad. "Why were you so impulsive?" My mom said, trying to calm him down. "At your age, with your high blood pressure, what if you had overdone it and made yourself sick? She hurt my son. She's lucky I didn't kill her." He walked over and sat down on the edge of my bed. "Dad," I said, my eyes red. My dad nodded and took my hand. After a long silence, he said to me, "Son, you need to know that no matter what, your mom and I will always be here for you. That job, if you don't want it, just quit. We have our pensions, we have savings. Even if you never get married and never work again, we can support you. As long as we're here, you don't have to be afraid of anyone. Even if God himself came down, your dad would stand in front of you." The tears finally broke through. I threw my arms around my dad and sobbed. My dad was usually a man of few words and very stubborn. When I was a rebellious teenager, we used to fight all the time. But he was the man who loved me most in all the world. After I was discharged, I rested at home for 2 weeks. Victoria came by twice. Of course, she never made it past the front door. A few days later, the company's employee union sent over a bunch of nutritional supplements and a home heart monitor. I knew it was Victoria's doing. Maybe, belatedly, she wanted to make up for the damage she had caused. The day before I went back to work, I got a text from an unknown number. "Leo, have you no shame? You're divorced and still trying to harass your ex-wife." It was followed by a string of vile insults. The number looked familiar. My parents called me from the living room to come have some homemade chicken soup. I deleted the text and blocked the number. When I got to work the next day, I found out Henry was here, too. "I can't believe Ms. Reed was married," Mark whispered to me in the break room. "Last week, her boyfriend showed up at the office and brought fruit for every department." He lowered his voice. Felt like he was marking his territory. "Yesterday, someone from the admin office heard them arguing in the GM's office with the door closed. They said the guy kept yelling something like, 'Why do you still care about him?' I also heard," he said, munching on sunflower seeds, "that this Henry guy was the other man. Ms. Reed was married, and he was a colleague at her old company. He broke up the marriage, and the ex-husband even came and made a huge scene. It was a big scandal and the company fired him. But he's clearly got game. The ex tried everything to save the marriage, but Ms. Reed still divorced him. I heard they only officially started dating recently. Apparently, the reason Ms. Reed left her old company was because of all the gossip after she got with him. That's why she transferred, and it just so happened our old GM got sick, so she was assigned to our branch. He clicked his tongue. See? Women always fall for the bad boys. I just smiled and didn't say anything. After work, I didn't go straight home. One of the women from the next department had set me up on a date, and the woman was coming to meet me downstairs. Her name was Lily, an art professor at the local university. I had just gotten to the parking garage when someone grabbed my arm. I turned around. It was Victoria. She was out of breath, looking at me with concern in her eyes. "You're back at work? Are you feeling better?" I froze for a second, but before I could answer, a sharp male voice came from behind us. The hand Victoria had on my arm was violently yanked away. "Well, if it isn't Leo," Henry said with a smirk, linking his arm through Victoria's. "Long time no see." Victoria's face was stiff, her expression grim. "I hear you were sick for a while?" His voice dripped with sarcasm. "What's the matter? The old trick stopped working, so now you're playing the frail victim after the divorce?" "Henry," Victoria said in a low, warning tone. "What are you talking about? Leo is an employee at my company now." "An employee?" Henry burst out laughing. "What a coincidence. I used to be an employee at your old company. You have so many employees now. Is he the only one who's so fragile? The only one with so much drama? Have you forgotten all the disgusting things he did to keep us apart? He's just trying to get your attention again." "Henry," I cut him off coldly. "Watch your mouth. Victoria and I are divorced. This has nothing to do with you two. I have no desire to see either of you, so please, stop bothering me." I took a step closer. "If you insist on bothering me, I have no problem letting everyone here know what you two did. You know I'm capable of it." Henry was stunned for a moment, as if he couldn't believe it. Then his voice rose. "Are you kidding me? I'm Victoria's official boyfriend now. What right do you have? When I was her legal husband, you didn't seem to have any problem shamelessly clinging to her." I sneered. "What, now that the roles are reversed, you've forgotten your own words?" I leaned in. "You're the one who told me that only a pathetic man uses marriage to chain down a woman." The color drained from Henry's face. "Excuse me, are you looking for Leo?" Pleasant female voice asked from behind me. I turned. It was my date, Lily. For some reason, Victoria's expression changed dramatically. "Are you Lily?" I asked. She nodded. "Yes." "Is everything okay? Do you need help?" I shook my head and smiled. "Nope, we're all good. Let's go." Behind me, Henry seemed like he was about to say something else, but Victoria held him back. I ignored them, didn't even glance at their faces, and got into Lily's car. After that soap opera, I had pretty much given up on the date. Even though Lily seemed like a wonderful person in every way, easily the best of my recent dates, I figured any woman would be put off by a scene like that. These things are all up to fate. Anyway, with that in mind, I apologized sincerely. "I'm so sorry you had to see that." To my surprise, she just smiled back at me. "Actually," she said, "when our mutual friend told me about your situation, I was curious why someone with your qualities would get divorced. I even came up with a few crazy theories. But after seeing that, it all makes sense. A marriage like that? Who wouldn't leave?" Her words were so frank and funny that they instantly dissolved all my awkwardness. "To be honest," I said, "I'm probably not ready to open my heart to a new relationship just yet." "That's normal," she said, "but you should still have faith. After all, there are still good women out there." As it turned out, having dinner with an art professor was actually really interesting. She could talk about art and color in a way that made even the most boring things sound fascinating. Over the next month at work, I heard plenty of gossip about Victoria and Henry. The most common rumor was that Henry came to pick Victoria up from work every single day. He's keeping a really tight leash on her. Well, you can understand it. He got with her while she was married to someone else in the same company. Now that he's about to be the official guy, of course he's going to defend his territory. I heard he's also using his kid with his ex-girlfriend, Sarah, to manipulate Victoria emotionally and financially. That's why he's so clingy. The other day, Ms. Reed was just leaving with her assistant, and apparently he nearly killed the assistant with a death glare. Whoa, I thought that girl had a boyfriend. Must have been a misunderstanding. Totally. I heard they got into another huge fight about it later. I listened silently, finding the whole thing a bit funny. Back when I loved Victoria and refused to divorce her, they were a united front, so deeply in love they were willing to die for it, with me as the obstacle in their path to true love. My resistance only made them more determined, pushing them to defy all morals to be together. But now that I had exhausted all my love and obsession and truly bowed out, these two passionate lovers were walking the same miserable path I had. The once confident Henry had become just as ugly and insecure as I had been. I wondered if this was the life they had imagined for themselves. Victoria continued to send me various supplements for a few months under the guise of the employee union. Eventually, word of this got back to Henry. One evening, I was working late finishing up some documents. When I left, I ran into Victoria at the company entrance. She seemed to hesitate for a moment before walking over. "How have you been lately?" I was silent for a moment, then said, "You can tell the union to stop sending things. They're from me personally," she said. "I was afraid you wouldn't accept them, so I said they were from the union." I sighed. "Victoria, what's the point? I want to make it up to you. If you feel even a shred of guilt about my health, then please never disturb my life again." She stood there, stunned. People are so strange. She was the one who fell for someone else, the one who kept pushing for a divorce. And now, she was endlessly trying to compensate her ex-husband. The sharp clack-clack of leather shoes approached. I didn't even have to look to know who it was. "Leo." Henry rushed forward, and I knew it expression on his face. "Have you no shame? So what if you have a bad heart? That was ages ago. You deserved it. If you had just agreed to the divorce sooner, you wouldn't have gotten so worked up that you had a heart attack. You're divorced, but you're still using your health to get Victoria's attention, to make her feel guilty, playing hard to get, right? You think Victoria can't see through your disgusting little tricks, but I can. How can you be so vile?" With that, he raised his hand to hit me. I instinctively moved to block it, but someone else was faster. "Stop," Lily said, grabbing his wrist, her voice cold. Smack. I swung my other hand and slapped Henry right across the face. Henry froze. Lily froze too. "You hit me?" he said, holding his cheek, dazed. "You hit me? How could you hit me?" "No reason," I said calmly. "Felt like it, so I did. It's not like I haven't done it before." All of Henry's composure vanished. He lunged at me like a wild animal. Victoria immediately grabbed him. He whipped around, hysterical. "What are you grabbing me for? That's enough. Open your eyes, Victoria. He's the one who hit me." He was practically sobbing now. "How could you let him hit me? How could you let him bully me? Who is your boyfriend here?" I quietly watched Victoria drag the screaming, flailing man away, and I just felt a sense of pity. The way he looked now was far uglier than I ever had. I turned to Lily, wondering if my slap had scared her. "I'm sorry every time. You always see such an embarrassing side of me." But she just shook her head and slowly gave me a thumbs up. "I think," she said, her eyes full of admiration, "that was really cool." News of what happened that night spread one way or another. My colleagues started whispering when they saw me. Even Mark came to ask if I had known Ms. Reed before. I thought about it but decided not to say anything. It was all in the past, after all. The following days were much calmer. When the acceptance letter from the experimental elementary school arrived, I wrote my resignation letter and submitted it. Victoria's call came through to my desk phone almost immediately. For the first time, I went to her office. Victoria held my resignation letter, her head down. "If this is because of Henry," she said softly, "don't worry. He won't bother you again. You don't have to quit." I shook my head. "It has nothing to do with him. If it's because of me..." She looked up. "Leo, I did things that hurt you. I've been thinking a lot lately, and I just want to make things right." I sighed. "Victoria, maybe there are some things I didn't make clear when we got divorced." She looked at me, confused. "It's okay. I'll say it again right here so it's perfectly clear. Throughout our relationship, I was always the one giving things up for us. You never had to sacrifice anything. When things come too easily, you don't value them. It's normal, and you have no idea, nor will you ever understand what I actually gave up for you. Did you ever stop to think that when I married you and moved to a strange city, I didn't know a single person? I came there for you. You were the only one I could rely on. When you promised forever, I believed you. I thought it meant forever. That's why I couldn't accept it when you broke your vow, why I fought so desperately to get you back. But you did everything you could to push me away so you could be with Henry. In that long three-way tug of war, I exhausted every last bit of love and devotion I had for you. To this day, I can't bring myself to wish you too well. I don't need your guilt or your apologies. I just want to never see either of you again, and I want you to stop interfering in my life. After I finished, Victoria lowered her eyes and was silent for a long time. Finally, she looked up, her eyes rimmed with red. She said, "I understand." After leaving the company, I started my new job at the experimental elementary school. I was back in front of a classroom doing the work I loved. Every day was fulfilling. Lily and I started spending time together as friends. As we talked, we discovered that her dad and my dad had actually been colleagues for a while before they retired. Mark and I kept in touch. According to him, after I left, Victoria stayed at the company for another 6 months before being transferred back to the head office. The last time I saw Victoria and Henry was in Hawaii. During winter break, I decided to take my parents on vacation to Hawaii. Coincidentally, Lily and her parents went every year, so we planned to go together. It would be a perfect chance to get a card game going over there. I guess some people are just destined to cross paths. I was on the beach wearing a big straw hat, buying some seashell jewelry, when I saw Victoria and Henry again. They were clearly on vacation too, but neither of them looked happy. "Why did you add her on WhatsApp?" Victoria's voice was weary. "Henry, can you please stop being unreasonable? I needed to pay her. What's wrong with adding her? You didn't even want to come on this trip with me, did you? You want to dump me, don't you?" Henry's voice was already cracking. "You want to dump me just like you dumped Leo, right?" There was a long pause before Victoria finally spoke. "Leo was nothing like you. Like me? What am I like?" Henry was nearly hysterical. "I'm telling you, Victoria, if you think you can cheat on me and then break up with me, you've got another thing coming." I didn't listen to the rest. Lily was calling for me. "The 4 parents are addicted to coconut water," she said with a laugh. "They're calling you over." In the distance, under the blue sky and white clouds, my mom was wearing big sunglasses and waving at me excitedly. "Leo, your dad opened a big coconut for you. Come on, hurry up." I smiled and waved back with all my might. "Coming."